Bitcoin should be held in cold storage versus in an IRA or Roth IRA. Okay, so the first thing is, my belief is, if the government will give you a tax-advantaged way to do anything, generally that's a good idea. Also, I have a lot less heartburn about holding Bitcoin in a retirement account as opposed to non-retirement accounts. The reason for that is I think retirement accounts are the least likely of the options for how you hold Bitcoin to get confiscated, of the sort of ways that of the ways you can hold Bitcoin. So, for example, if you've got a huge amount of Bitcoin on Coinbase, and the government decides they want a huge amount of Bitcoin, well, Coinbase is holding a huge amount of Bitcoin. So that would be the easiest place for the government to get it, is just from exchanges that hold huge amounts. And, for example, Coinbase holds the largest amount of any U.S.-based exchange that's subject to U.S. laws. So that's why I historically have always encouraged people, if you have a large balance, more than $5,000, move it over to Bitkey, Bitkey. Website is bitkey.world. Because I think if it were to get confiscated, the Bitcoin that would get confiscated, which is, again, like a zero possibility, but I plan for everything, including 0.0000001% chances. So I consider that sort of Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin held by MicroStrategy or major corporations, to be much more at risk of confiscation than I do retirement funds. I just don't see the government taking Bitcoin out of people's retirement funds. That just seems, even to me, who's not a fan of government, like a very unlikely scenario. So, as it relates to retirement funds, I am less worried about government confiscation than I would be for other types of Bitcoin holdings. And therefore, I think the tax benefits that the government's willing to give you on retirement funds outweigh the downside of losing that sort of self-custody. Now, you can actually have your cake and eat it too. It's just technologically complicated. So there's a company called Unchained Capital, Unchained, Unchained Capital, that offers IRAs and Roth IRAs where you hold the keys. But again, it's a lot more technologically complicated than something like Bitkey, which is why I generally don't recommend it to people. Give me 1 second. I am out of water. So anyway, for retirement funds, I recommend Fidelity, because I think the technological sophistication required to implement Unchained Capital is just too high for most people. And I have my own 401k that is now a rollover IRA, because if you take control of your 401k or your 403b, it becomes a rollover IRA. It changes form when you take control of it to become an IRA, and it can become it's called a rollover IRA at that point. So my answer is, how much funds should go into Bitcoin? As much as possible. For the funds that go into Bitcoin, should they go in retirement or non-retirement accounts? That comes down to your own value judgment of how much of your assets you want in retirement accounts versus not retirement accounts. Obviously, you want to live your life before you turn 70, in addition to live your life after you turn 70. So everybody has a different value judgment of, how much they want, reserved for the future versus now. But for retirement funds, I would max out, if you have the choice of doing a rollover IRA from a 401k or a 403b, I would absolutely do that. That's a no-brainer. I would roll that over, roll it into a Fidelity crypto IRA. And the unique Fidelity crypto IRA lets you invest directly in Bitcoin. That's a no-brainer. Okay, so once you've rolled over anything you can roll over, which is 401ks, 403bs, just anything from the past from an employer that is not your current employer, because you cannot roll over your current employer. You can only roll it over after you are no longer employed there. Once you've rolled over everything you can, if you're planning to put more in Bitcoin in retirement, I would, max out or put as much into a Roth IRA, a Fidelity crypto Roth IRA as I could. If that was maxed out and I wanted to put even more in retirement, I would put that in a Fidelity crypto IRA. So basically, if you got a 401k or 403b, I would roll that over. If you still had money that you wanted in retirement funds, I would max out a Fidelity crypto Roth IRA. If I still had more money, I'd put it in a Fidelity crypto IRA. And at that point, I have all three. I have a Fidelity crypto rollover IRA that came from my 401k or 403b, and a Fidelity Crypto Roth IRA, and then a Fidelity Crypto IRA. And at that point, if you max all of them out, then you don't have a way of investing additional funds in a tax-advantaged way, and so then you have no choice but to put the remainder of your funds buying Bitcoin on River or Coinbase or somewhere like that. But if you can get a tax-advantaged way of doing it, I mean, my opinion is always take the tax-advantaged way of doing it if you have a tax-advantaged way of doing it. And then the reason I recommend, something like River is because it's a lot easier to understand what Bitcoin ownership is, how it works, all of that, if you have that sort of direct ownership of it and you can sort of see it real time. So it's just a lot easier to on-ramp to something like River where you can buy $100 or $1,000 as opposed to moving over an old 401k. There's just more steps involved. It's still super easy, but obviously if you're rolling it over, there's bigger decisions about that sort of thing. So that's my answer, is as much in retirement as you're comfortable with, and Fidelity Crypto Rollover IRA first, then Fidelity Crypto Roth IRA, then Fidelity Crypto IRA. All of those have the word crypto in them, which lets you invest directly in Bitcoin. And if you don't invest directly in Bitcoin, if you have a traditional rollover IRA, or Roth IRA, or an IRA, you can still invest in Bitcoin. You just have to do it through one of the Bitcoin ETFs, exchange-traded funds. I recommend the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF, which is FBTC. F as in Fidelity, BTC as in the three letters that represent Bitcoin. So anyway, hope that helps. If you have money in an old 401k or an old 403b, it's just begging to be rolled into a Fidelity Crypto Rollover IRA. That is just the lowest of low-hanging fruit. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.